Welcome everybody to Hear Me Out Podcast and Frank Analysis. I am your host Franco, and I'm joined today by a very special guest. His name is Jeff Melton. He's a writer of Medium.com, and he also has his own channel called The Bitter Pill. Welcome, Jeff, to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, thanks. How about yourself?
Doing well, despite all the craziness that's happening right now. Let's talk a bit now about the protests that are happening right now. What do you think about the protests happening?
Well, I mean, obviously it needed to happen, and it's really the first time I can think of since Occupy Wall Street, and it may even wind up being bigger than that, where there was a nationwide movement, and we'll see. And so, on so many occasions, something happens and gets a lot of news coverage as far as activism or protest goes, and then it kind of fizzles out. And that even happened with the anti-war movement against the Iraq War, unfortunately. And I'm hoping that this won't be like this, that it'll be a more lasting thing, because even though the focus has been on police brutality, and of course, we see all these videos day after day, dozens every day, of police continuing to be brutal toward people who were just standing up for their rights and for the right of black people to not be murdered by the cops. And the cops are just randomly abusing them. Just for the hell of it, just like a power trip or something. I think, of course, if you look at the way that some of the media covers this, they've been very focused on looting or the few acts of violence that there have been on the part of people who either were protesting or were out in the streets where protests were. Frankly, I really don't give a shit if Target gets looted. It's not as big a deal if property gets damaged or stolen or whatever, as if somebody gets killed or maimed. There was a reporter who got her eye shot out the other day, and it's just incredible how violent the cops are being. And I want to mention here, as an animal rights activist, I don't like hearing cops called pigs, because pigs are nice, cops are not.
It's an insult to real pigs.
Yes.
Yeah, I honestly don't shed a tear when I see a Target or a Nike raided. I mean, they have insurance for that stuff. But it's just those small businesses where I do shed a tear.
Yeah.
So do you think Bernie and Tulsi have been vocal enough about the protests happening right now?
Well, they haven't been vocal enough about a lot of things. But don't really have time to get into this very much. I do want to just mention that we had a candidate who was a known sexual predator in the race since last year, and there were all these news stories about from multiple women saying that Joe Biden groped them or made inappropriate comments to them, or whatever was the case. And I think Kamala Harris was the only presidential candidate who said anything about it at all. And then, after the Tara Reade allegation came out in late March, which she had been trying to, get that story out there for, I think she said since last summer, and nobody would take up the story until Katie Halper did. But Bernie Sanders was totally silent about that until he was confronted by a reporter. Joe Biden was just my good friend, this great guy. didn't do very much wrong except disagree with some of his policies. Uh,
Yeah, I would say Tulsi was not vocal enough about Joe Biden either.
yeah,
Both of
none
them
of the
should have.
candidates were.
Maybe
None of them were critical of Biden.
they could have teamed up and taken him down early on, but maybe they
Yeah,
were hoping. I mean, all of us were also, a lot of us were speculating that he would have taken himself down because of his um, obvious mental decline, and
yeah.
you know, a lot of things that he said would just not make sense. But he just keeps getting all these opportunities and getting lucky.
Yeah, well, I mean, not just lucky, but it's just like a emperor's new clothes phenomenon. Nobody would say anything bad about him in the media, and all the Democratic politicians lined up behind him, and basically, everything negative about him pretty much was whitewashed, and that continues to be the case.
What I want to constantly remind people, because I mean, people who are political junkies or who are very informed know that Joe Biden, much like Donald Trump, is part of the problem. But a lot of these protesters who are more casual, um, people who are, you know, they're not as informed, we need to remind them Joe Biden is part of this problem. Joe Biden is the author of the 1994 crime bill. Just because we
Right.
get rid of Donald Trump and we install Joe Biden doesn't mean that everything is going to go back to normal. Don't forget that it was under Barack Obama in which what we saw, um, the injustice happened to Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, and so many other African Americans. So,
Yeah, and all these places where protests happen, such as Ferguson and Baltimore and so forth, the police were incredibly violent, and these cities, generally speaking, had Democratic mayors. The states often had Democratic governors. Of course, Obama was the president. It was under Obama that Occupy Wall Street was smashed, and the protesters at Standing Rock were oppressed, and people in Flint still don't have clean water. Um, Obama definitely is part of the problem too, and that's one thing I would say of all the presidential candidates this time is that Obama's like the sacred cow that nobody will touch. I think Tulsi might have criticized him a couple of times, but that's about it.
yeah, they're definitely playing it way too safe with that. They thought they would have been met with backlash, but what I think would have happened is probably we would have seen the same thing in what we saw with the Republican debates when Donald Trump called out the corruption of the Bush administration and how it was his fault that 9/11 happened and how we went into Iraq because of a lie. And that
Yeah,
was the demise of Jeb Bush.
yeah. It's really interesting how even though at the time, of course, Donald Trump himself supported the Iraq War, he was able to convince a lot of people to vote for him by being very critical of U.S. Foreign policy of a few years ago. A lot of I think somebody did a study of how different counties uh, that had voted for Obama voted this time, and in places where there were a lot of military veterans who, opposed, you know, the Iraq War, or just more anti-war in general. Those places went generally to Trump rather than Clinton.
Yeah, and let's not forget also when you brought up about what you brought up about Flint, Michigan, is when Obama went there, he was pretty much like making fun of them. Like he's like, "Yo, the water's good, yeah," and he like laughed about it.
Yeah, yeah.
That clearly was not the actual water from Flint. Um,
Well, it may have been. I just don't. It didn't look like he drank it.
just put his mouth on it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on. I hope to have
Oh,
you on again. Definitely would love to talk about human health and animal rights and the corruption in the food industry. Because not only is a lot of our food have all these harmful substances, but a lot of pet food has a lot of harmful substances as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. Everybody, please subscribe to his channel. It's called The Bitter Pill. It's linked in the description. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you have not yet to my channel, Frank Analysis. Thank you all so much and have a great day. And don't forget to stay informed.
Thanks, Franco.
Thanks for watching that segment of Hear Me Out. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below so you can get the latest on sports, pop culture, and progressive politics. Stay informed.